Rock on, acknowledge my song, bring my posse along to the party, cause danger zone. From the heart is in effect, so I say buddy, study, think and learn, dig the move we made. Stunning those who just can't behave. Discipline, here's a hint, a clue from the crew and too tough. All up in you with the formula coming from me, cause no one told ya of a logo, a theory, a saying. This ain't no joke, Jimmy, I ain't playing. I'm hardcore, straight up raw. I'm the overlord, I door clocking. But no, as if you didn't know.
Y'all want this party started, right? Y'all want this party started quickly, right? Set it off, I suggest. Don't set it off, I suggest. Don't set it off. Set it off, set it off, set it off.
Miss Ray celebrated her 107th birthday on Thursday, October 31st, as she was born on this day in 1912. The family celebrated this most honored occasion on Friday, November 1st, 2019 at 5 p.m. at the Jones Scott Fellowship Hall, Bethel Baptist Institutional Church. Key facts about the honoree are as follows. Born to the parents of Darius and Ruth Dixon Graham, along with her older brother Martin. Lifelong educator who began her teaching career in the Duval County School District in 1933 and retiring from the Florida State College at Jacksonville, formerly FCCJ, in 1983. Providing 50 years of educational excellence. In fact, her mom, Ruth Dixon Graham, also taught for 50 years. Her career included serving as a guidance counselor for the district and FCCJ as an associate professor of counseling. She completed her educational academic training from the following institutions. 1930, Stanton High School. 1932, A.S. degree, Bethune-Cookman College. 1940, B.S. degree, Tuskegee University. 1945, M.A. degree, Hampton University. Additional studies accomplished at Florida A&M, University of Florida, University of Michigan, and New York University. She worked over 40 years as a Girl Scout troop leader as well as a certified national trainer for other troop leaders throughout the country. She received a 40-year pin and was featured in the Girl Scout Leadership magazine for her training expertise as one of the first African American leaders in Jacksonville to attend the Edith Macy National Training Schools for the Girl Scouts of America organization in 1953. During her early years growing up, she delighted in assisting her mom with tutoring students at their home on Spearing Street, where Miss Ray resides. Playing basketball on the church team, singing in the choir, and serving as a pianist for one of the churches near her home. She is a sports enthusiast and lover of laughter and music. Currently the oldest member of Bethel, she grew up in Bethel and served as the secretary of the trustees ministry for over 40 years. An avid world traveler and adventurer, she has traveled the globe via Africa, Italy, Spain, U.S., including Hawaii and Alaska, Germany, and the list goes on. She is an accomplished author and contributing poet, International Society of Poets Anthology, published Inside and Out, 1986, Book of Inspirational Poems. Co-author, History of Black Firefighters in Jacksonville, 1850 to 1905. Unpublished collection of historical facts. Make a Difference, Take a Chance, unpublished. She is currently finalizing the book. Ms. Ray has touched and impacted thousands of lives as her lifelong quest has been to, in some way, help to stir the wind beneath the wings of others and spur them to seek, soar, and discover the true treasures of life. She is by far a community treasure.
Freedom or death, we got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. 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 Fight the power.
The life of Pastor Pearlie R. Graham. Pearlie Graham was born on April 30th, 1942 in Butler, Georgia. As a little girl, she was a sharecropper alongside her parents. The late Eva Rogers was her mother. Pearlie was a very smart little girl, although she was only allowed to go to school when the weather was too bad to farm. With determination in her favor, she knew that one day she would be successful, even if it started with self-education. She strongly desired to be educated. In high school, her academics were great, and because of that, she was selected to be Miss R.L. McDougall High School. But because she was very poor, she could not accept the title. It was given to a young lady whose family was more financially stable at that time. Even after several major disappointments in her life, Pearlie knew that God still had a plan for her. Because if nothing else, she loved God. At the age of 19, she left Butler, Georgia, with the mindset to go to Atlanta, Georgia. However, because she always had a special relationship with God, an angel spoke to her and told her to start her new life in Jacksonville, Florida. Pearlie and her only sister left for Jacksonville with no real plans to ever return to the country life to live, but only to visit. Once arriving in Jacksonville, the two young women spent 1 month homeless, and after that, the rest is history. Pearlie started working her first job here on the east side of Jacksonville at Spot Right Cleaners as a custodian for the late Mr. R.L. Paget. Her work ethics were impeccable, and with that being said, in her idle time, she began to learn the dry cleaning business. Because she was dedicated and hardworking, Mr. Paget saw something in the young hard worker, so he promoted her as the counter worker and also gave her the opportunity to do the alterations for the cleaners. She consistently performed and learned the business and all that it involved. Mr. Paget and his wife did not have children, but they said that if they had ever had any, they wanted that child to be just like Pearlie. Many years later, Mr. Paget took sick, and he wanted to ensure the business successfully continued on. He knew that Pearlie had what it took to keep the business going, so he sold the business to her, which is now still in operation 45 years later, for a total of 90 years of business service to the community. Pearlie's accomplishments consist of being that owner of the Spotlight Cleaners, as well as owning the entire strip that it sits in. She is pastor of Second Coming, Second Chance Ministry, owner of Pearl Graham Realty Company, owner, designer of Unique Design Clothing, which specializes in designing and making men, women, and children's clothes. And she's also the founder of a Pearl Graham hair formula, which is guaranteed to grow your hair. Pearlie is a pillar in this community and the matriarch of her family. She has not been selfish with her success. She has made countless amounts of contributions to the East Side community and to the elderly who are less fortunate, and to this day she still feeds them by providing bread, snacks, and cakes to the community every Wednesday. Pastor Pearlie R. Graham is a prayer warrior that continuously lifts our East Side up in prayer. She is truly an asset to this community.
Just in case you didn't know, Matthew W. Gilbert High School was the first black high school to win the state championship in football. In 1958, the undefeated all-black Matthew W. Gilbert football team went to the state championship playoff games and they won. But the team was not recognized by the white community here in Jacksonville and in the state of Florida. The team had only beaten black schools throughout the state, and because of the segregation laws during the 1950s, Gilbert was not allowed to play any white schools. It took 50 years for the school and its team to receive the recognition that they deserved. So in 2008, the school's football team's accomplishments were finally recognized. The awards took place in this auditorium, and each of the players received a ring and a jacket. The rings had an orange stone representing the school colors with each player's name engraved on it. The orange and green jackets had the words "State Champs" across the back. Those rings and jackets were purchased with contributions from community members and local businesses. Even though back in 2008 it had been 50 years since this accomplishment, and many of the 69 team players from 1958 were either deceased or had some type of physical handicap due to health, they finally were recognized. Today, I am humbled and honored to once again recognize the 1958 Matthew W. Gilbert High School State Football Champions by presenting this award.
Gonna make a change for once in my life. It's gonna feel real good. Gonna make a difference. Gonna make it right. As I turn up the collar on my favorite winter coat, this wind is blowing my mind. I see the kids in the street.
This honoree was born on the north side of Jacksonville and graduated from Stanton College Preparatory High School and the University of Florida, where she majored in political science. She's an aggregator of people and has turned her passion and love for the community into a 10-year career as a community organizer. She is truly an involved and active woman in this community. She is the current campaign director of the Florida Public Service Union's Higher Education Campaign and previously the state field director for Service Employees International Union. Angie currently serves as the vice chair of the Democratic Party. She is also the founder of the Moxie Group, a community outreach and consulting firm that focuses on empowering underserved and underrepresented communities. Angie is the mom of a real superhero, 10-year-old author Natalie Moxie McGriff. She's a business owner, founder of Northside Love and Eastside, and co-founder of the Melanin Market. There are many other achievements of this individual, but I do not want us to be here all night.
So bright she can burn your eyes. Better look the other way. You can try, but you'll never forget.
Rodney Lawrence Hurt Sr. is a civil rights activist, a black historian, and the author of 2 award-winning books. It Was Never About a Hot Dog and a Coke, a personal account of the 1960 sit-in demonstrations in Jacksonville, Florida, and Axe Handle Saturday, and Unless We Tell It, It Never Gets Told, which deals with the Jacksonville Black history, Jacksonville civil rights history, and confronting racism. It Was Never About a Hot Dog and a Coke recounts with clarity the segregated civic, the segregated political, and the segregated educational climate of Jacksonville, Florida in the 1950s and the 1960s. Hurst, a native of Jacksonville and a 1960 high school graduate of segregated Northwestern Junior Senior High School in Jacksonville, was the 16-year-old president of the Jacksonville Youth Council NAACP and was one of the leaders of the 1960 sit-in demonstrations. He tells the real history of the bloody events of August 27, 1960, when 200 whites with axe handles and baseball bats attacked members of the Jacksonville Florida Youth Council NAACP who were demonstrating peaceably at white lunch counters in downtown Jacksonville, and also attacked anyone black in downtown Jacksonville. The press calls that day Axe Handle Saturday. Due to the blackout of news during those days of segregation, Hurst's book detailing his eyewitness account is the only historically accurate description of the 1960 Jacksonville sit-ins and Axe Handle Saturday. Her second book, Unless We Tell It, It Never Gets Told, published in January 2016, relates stories of notable blacks of Jacksonville who impacted this city and the country, relates stories of America's black history, and relates stories of the historical fight against racism.
The civil rights movement in the late 50s and the early 60s is a history painted on the human canvas of courage. As retail stores that opened their doors to the public, Woolworth, W.T. Grant, Coin Brothers, and other downtown stores in Jacksonville, Florida, and throughout the country would accept your money at one counter, but would deny you service at another. Their white lunch counters were visible vestiges of segregation and were an open daily reminder of the obscene and insulting treatment of blacks. Mr. Rutledge Henry Pearson, an American history school teacher and the advisor to the Jacksonville, Florida Youth Council, NAACP, imparted one basic philosophy to his students and youth council members. Freedom is not free. If it is worth having, it is worth making a sacrifice and fighting the good fight. Disregarding physical peril, members of the Jacksonville Youth Council NAACP made the decision to confront the city's segregated policies and its accompanying Jim Crow laws. They simply said, enough is enough. It Was Never About a Hot Dog and a Coke recounts the 1960 sit-in demonstrations, which sought to protest segregation peacefully, and Jacksonville's response of vicious violence. More than 200 whites with axe handles and baseball bats attacked the demonstrators in yet another chapter of the historical testimony of how some preferred to handle the racial situation in Jacksonville. The press called it Axe Handle Saturday. Blacks in the 50s and early 60s were not free. They endured racism, discrimination, pain, and suffering in the fight for civil rights. Yet, they fought on the courage of their convictions, knowing God was on their side. They endeavored to leave a legacy and heritage of which we can all be proud. We have an obligation to today's generation to tell our story. Regardless of what you have seen or heard about sit-in demonstrations, it was never about eating a hot dog and drinking a Coke. It was always about human dignity and respect. The struggle continues.